Welcome to the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast on Mintwave Radio and all podcast platforms. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist or healer with an online program and would like to find out how to grow your business whilst having fun podcasting, go to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free. Let's dive into today's episode.
Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast, where we help coaches like you unleash the power of podcasting to grow your audience and drive sales. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and today we're diving deep into a topic that's going to be a game changer as we move into the last quarter of 2024, goal setting. As we near the end of the year, there's this collective energy in the air. Everyone's scrambling to finish strong. But here's the thing. It's not too late to set powerful, intentional goals. In fact, the last quarter could be the most productive and profitable one yet, if you approach it in the right way. But before I get into the strategies, I want to take you back to a specific moment when goal setting saved my business. You know, it's funny how some days just feel different, like there's something in the air pushing you to finally make a change. Well, that's exactly how I felt one crisp autumn morning, the kind of morning where the air has that sharp, cool bite and the sun is just peeking through the clouds just enough to make everything glow. I was in my kitchen, sipping on my first cup of coffee of the day, staring out of the window. Everything outside was calm, but inside my head, total chaos. I'd been feeling stuck for a while, like I had all these ideas and projects floating around, but no clear direction. It was frustrating because I knew I wanted more, but I just couldn't figure out how to get there. And honestly, I was tired of that feeling, that nagging sense that you're not quite living up to your potential. So I decided that morning, enough was enough. I needed to get clear on what I actually wanted to achieve. So I grabbed my journal, which, by the way, is an old leather-bound book that's seen more than its fair share of half-baked ideas and random thoughts. I sat down by the window and I opened it up to a blank page. And then I just wrote one simple question at the top. What do I want to achieve by the end of this year? Now, this was September 2020. Now, I've got to be honest with you. At first, I had no idea what to write. The question felt so big, so overwhelming, I didn't even know where to start. But I just sat there, staring at that question, and slowly, bit by bit, things started to come together. I started breaking it down, thinking about what really mattered to me and what I actually wanted to focus on. And that's when it hit me. I needed to get specific. I came up with 3 goals for the last quarter of that year. 3 things that I could measure, that I could actually work towards. And one of them really stood out, and that was launching my show. I had been thinking about it for ages, since I did my online summit back in the May of 2020, where I interviewed 20 coaches from a physical, mental, or spiritual perspective. And I had been approached by Mintwave radio station to launch a weekly show, but I was procrastinating about it. I'd been thinking about it for ages. Maybe the idea of sharing stories, connecting with people, and using that as a way to grow my business. It was something that excited me, but you know how it goes. I kept finding reasons to put it off. It's not the right time, or I'm not ready, or what if it's not perfect? But as I sat there, something shifted. I realized that all those excuses were just a lack of focus. I didn't need everything to be perfect. I just needed to start. And once I had those 3 goals written down, I felt this incredible sense of clarity. It was like the fog that had been clouded my mind for months had finally lifted. I didn't have all the answers and I didn't need them. What I had was a direction, a clear path forward, and that was enough. The how would come later. What mattered was that I knew what I wanted and why it was important. So if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, maybe it's time to do the same. Sit down, get clear on what you want, and break it down into something manageable. You might be surprised at how much clarity you can find when you just take a moment to focus. And with that clarity, anything is possible. Look, I know we all struggle at one point or other with that overwhelming feeling of being scattered or unfocused. It's like you have all these amazing ideas and goals, but they're floating around in your head like a bunch of loose puzzle pieces. You know they could come together to create something awesome, but you just can't seem to find the right way to fit them all together. That's exactly where I was before I decided to make a change. So, how did I finally overcome this chaotic, unfocused mindset? Where I got laser focused on 3 key things that completely turned everything around for me. First up, clarity of purpose. I knew I wanted to use my show as a tool to grow my coaching business. This wasn't a vague idea floating around in my head anymore. It became my North Star. I spent some serious time thinking about why I wanted to start a show and what I hoped to achieve with it. Was it about building a platform to share valuable insights? Was it about connecting with a wider audience who could benefit from my coaching? Absolutely. Once I nailed down that purpose, everything else started to make sense. I wasn't just chasing after any random project. I was working towards something that had real meaning and value for me. Next, I realized I needed to break down the big picture into bite-sized steps. I'm sure you've been there, looking at a massive goal and feeling completely overwhelmed by the sheer size of it. That's exactly how I felt about launching my show. I kept thinking about all the things that needed to be done: planning the episodes, creating content, finding guests, figuring out the tech side of things, and so on. But here's the thing: I didn't need to do it all at once. Instead, I broke it down. I asked myself, what's the first thing I need to do? And then, what comes after that? By breaking it down into manageable tasks, I was able to focus on one thing at a time. Each small step forward brought me closer to the bigger goal without the overwhelming pressure of trying to do everything at once. And finally, I knew I needed accountability to stay on track. Let's face it, it's easy to make promises to ourselves and then let them slide when no one's watching. To my benefit, I started with launching a show on a radio station. So that became my accountability buddy, if you like, because my perception was, or how I felt, was I had to have a show, a 60-minute show ready to send to the radio station every week. It wasn't just about me. I'd be letting down the station if I didn't submit a show. So it helped me stick to my goals. So what you can do is find an accountability buddy. Knowing that someone else is invested in your progress will make a huge difference. You see, for me, it wasn't just about me anymore. There was someone else who cared about whether I was making progress or not. And that extra layer of commitment kept me moving forward, even on the days when I felt like slacking off. So these 3 things, clarity of purpose, breaking down the big picture, and accountability, were game changers for me. They transformed the way I approached my goals and allowed me to crush that last quarter with more focus and determination than ever before. That's why I'm so passionate about helping others avoid the same pitfalls I faced, because I've been there and I know how frustrating it is to feel like you're spinning your wheels, getting nowhere. But with the right approach, you can take control of that scattered feeling and turn it into something powerful. So, today, I'm going to share with you the exact formula that I use to crush my goals in that last quarter and how you can apply it to your own business right now. Whether you're looking to launch a new project, grow your audience, launch a podcast, whatever it is. Maybe it's just to get more organized in your day-to-day life. These strategies can help you get there. So let's dive in and start turning those scattered ideas into focused, actionable plans. This is what can really make or break your success in this final quarter of the year. Setting and achieving your goals. Q4, quarter four is crunch time. It's the last stretch of 2024, and it's a perfect opportunity to push yourself and finish strong. Let's break it down into some practical steps that you can start implementing right now. Step 1. Start with clarity of vision. So first things first, you've got to know exactly what you want to achieve by the end of December. It's not enough to have a vague idea like, I want to grow my podcast, or I want to start a podcast, or I want to improve my business. You need to be crystal clear about what success looks like for you. Think about it this way. If someone asked you on New Year's Eve how your Q4 went, what specific accomplishments would you want to be proud of? For example, do you want to increase your podcast downloads by 20%? Or maybe your focus is on landing 3 high-ticket clients through your podcast. The more specific you get, the better. When your goals are clear and measurable, you know exactly what you're aiming for and you can track your progress along the way. So action step number 1, grab a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and write down your top 3 goals for quarter 4. Make sure they're not only specific, but also measurable and time bound. What gets measured gets managed. Step number 2, break it down. Once you've got these 3 big goals in place, it's time to break them down into manageable tasks. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They just see the big picture, but they don't know how to take the first step. So let's make it simple. Say your goal is to increase your podcast downloads by 20%. What does that look like on a weekly or daily basis? Maybe it means creating more engaging content, reaching out to potential guests for collaborations, doing guest swaps on other podcasts, or ramping up your social media promotion. Breaking it down like this makes it less overwhelming and gives you a clear path to follow. Action step number 2. Use a calendar or a planner, whether that's physical or digital, whatever works for you, and schedule these smaller tasks. When you see it all mapped out, it stops being the huge, intimidating project and becomes a series of manageable steps. Plus, having it all scheduled helps keep you accountable to yourself. Step number 3, build in accountability. So, when we're speaking about accountability, it's crucial to have someone in your corner. We all know how easy it is to let things slide when no one's watching. That's why having an accountability partner, whether it's a coach, a mentor, or peer, can make all the difference. This person should be someone that can give you a nudge when you're slacking and celebrate with you when you hit your milestones. The key here is consistency, regular check-ins to make sure that you're staying on track. So action step number 3, find an accountability partner or group that you can check in with on a weekly basis. It could be as simple as a quick text or a 15-minute call. The point is to have someone who's expecting to hear about your progress and will hold you to your commitment. Step number 4, track and adjust. Now, let's just talk about tracking your progress, because setting goals is one thing, but if you're not tracking how you're doing, you're just flying blind. And here's the important part: don't be afraid to adjust if something isn't working. Goal setting isn't about being rigid, it's about making sure that you're making progress. So let's say you plan to grow your podcast audience through social media, but you're not seeing the results that you wanted. That's okay. This is where you need to be flexible. Maybe it's time to try a different approach, like exploring other platforms or focusing on email marketing. So, action step number 4, set up a weekly review session with yourself. Yes, schedule it in, just like any other important meeting. During this time, measure your progress against your goals, what is working, what isn't, and most importantly, what do you need to do to adjust it to keep moving forwards? So, by following these steps, getting clear on your vision, breaking down your goals, building in accountability, and then tracking and adjusting, you're setting yourself up for a successful Q4. Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every step you take, no matter how small, is bringing you closer to where you want to be. So let's make these last few months of 2024 count. Let's get real for a second and talk about something that trips us up. Those pesky limiting beliefs. You know the ones I'm talking about, those thoughts that sneak in and convince you that you're already too far behind, or that there's no point in setting goals because, hey, the year's almost over, so what can I really accomplish? Does that sound familiar? If you're anything like me, you probably have moments where you thought, I've already lost too much time this year, or setting goals now is pointless because I won't have enough time to reach them. Let me just stop you right there, because I'm here to tell you that simply isn't true. The fourth quarter is actually an incredible time to make these goals, because here's why. There's something about Q4 that's different. The energy shift. As the year starts to wind down, people naturally begin thinking about new beginnings, about what they want to accomplish in the next year. It's a time for reflection, sure, but also a time when people are more open to change and they're ready to push forwards. So you can absolutely leverage that momentum to your advantage. I had to do a serious mindset shift around this myself. For the longest time, I was stuck in the belief that I needed months for preparation before I even thought about launching a project. I'd tell myself, I can't do this now, it's too late in the year, I'll just wait till January. But here's what I realized: time is what you make of it. When I finally set clear, specific goals, I discovered that I could accomplish more in a single quarter than I had in an entire year of aimless effort. Think about it. When you're focused and intentional, when you've got a clear vision and a plan, you can get so much done, even in just a few months. It's not about how much time you have, it's about how you use that time. I'm not saying you need to hustle nonstop or burn yourself out trying to achieve everything at once. But what I'm saying is that you shouldn't let the calendar dictate your potential. The truth is, you can achieve significant progress even in the last quarter of the year if you're willing to let go of those limiting beliefs and just go for it. If you're sitting there thinking it's too late to start, I want you to challenge that thought. Ask yourself, what's really holding me back? Is it time, or is it the belief that I need more time than I actually do? Here's a little secret. The belief that you've already lost too much time this year is just that. It's a belief. The only fact that matters is what you choose to do with the time that you have right now. You've got the same 24 hours in a day than anyone else, and you can choose to spend those hours making progress towards your goals. One of the biggest shifts I made was recognizing that I didn't need endless months of preparation to make something happen. When I honed in on my goals and broke them down to actionable steps, I was amazed at how much I could get done in just a few weeks. And let me tell you, the satisfaction of hitting those milestones is incredible. It's the kind of momentum that carries you into the new year with confidence and excitement. So let's flip the script on those limiting beliefs. The year isn't over yet, and there's still plenty of time to make an impact. Set your goals, make your plan, and watch how much you can achieve when you decide to believe in your own potential. You've got this. Let's make Q4 your most powerful yet. Let's just also tackle some of the most common objections that come up when we talk about setting and achieving goals, and that is time and money. I totally get it. You're busy, and there never seems to be enough hours in the day to do everything you want, let alone carve out time for goal setting and execution. And then there's the money side of things. You might be thinking, I'd love to go all in on my goals, but I don't have the budget right now. But here's the thing, when you approach goal setting the right way, you'll actually find that you have more time and you don't need to break the bank to get started. Let's start with time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, but it often feels like those hours just slip through our fingers, especially when we're juggling a million different things. But what I've found is that when you set clear, specific goals and break them down into actionable steps, you actually save time in the long run. Why? Because you stop wasting energy on things that don't move the needle. Think about it. How much time do we spend each day on tasks that aren't really getting us closer to where we want to be? It's easy to get caught up in busy work or to feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of things on our to-do list. But when you have clear goals, it becomes much easier to prioritize your tasks. You can look at your list and ask, is this task aligned with my goal? Is this helping me achieve what I set out to do? If the answer is no, it's something you can either delegate, defer, or drop altogether. So instead of spinning your wheels on things that don't really matter, you're laser focused on the steps that will get you to your goals. And that's where the magic happens. You start to feel more in control of your time and you're able to make progress more efficiently. The trick is in the planning. Set aside a little time up front to get clear on your goals and map out your steps, and you'll be amazed at how much time you actually free up once you're not constantly switching gears or getting bogged down by distractions. Now let's talk about money. This is a big one. It's easy to think that you need a big budget to make any significant progress, but that's simply not true. When I first started my podcast, I didn't have a huge budget to throw around. In fact, I started with low-cost tools and free resources. There's a wealth of free or inexpensive tools out there that can help you get started, whether that's recording software, whether that's marketing platforms or design tools. The key is to focus on what you can do right now with what you have. Maybe it's tweaking your podcast marketing strategy by getting creative with social media. Or maybe it's offering a mini course to your audience that doesn't require a huge investment up front. The important thing is to start somewhere and build from there. As my podcast grew, I was able to reinvest the revenue that I was generating into better equipment or more advanced marketing strategies, and even bringing on some help. But in the beginning, it was all about making the most of what I had at my disposal. And here's the truth. Sometimes those constraints can spark creativity. When you're working with a limited budget, you're forced to think outside the box and find solutions that you might not have considered otherwise. So if you're holding back because of time or money, I want you to challenge those objections. You don't need a lot of either to get started. What you need is clarity, focus, and the willingness to make the most of what you have. Set your goals, break them down into manageable steps, and use the resources that are at your disposal. As you gain momentum, you'll find that you'll have more time and money to reinvest in your growth. And that's when you really start to see the payoff. Remember, it's not about waiting for the perfect moment or having all the resources up front. It's about taking the first step with what you've got and trusting that everything else will fall into place as you go. You've got this. Let's make it happen. So if you're looking at the last quarter of 2024, wondering if it's too late to set meaningful goals, the answer is no. You still have time to make a massive impact, whether it's growing your podcast, whether it's starting a podcast, landing new clients, or expanding your reach. It all starts with a clear plan. I'm living proof that goal setting can transform your business, and I want you to feel the same energy, that same focus as we close out this year. So get out there, set out those goals. Let's finish 2024 with a bang. And if you're looking to launch a podcast, just come and have a chat. I offer a complimentary podcast strategy call, and we have options for each budget. Whether you spend your time doing it yourself and I guide you through it, or you want to save time and let us do the editing. There's something for everyone. So go to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/appointment and just come and have a chat about it. Let's see what you can achieve by the end of 2024. I'll be back next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer who would like to drive sales whilst having fun podcasting, head over to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free and find out how you can turn your podcast into a sales machine. We'll see you on the next episode.